You ever wonder how a single company can get so massive, so powerful, that it touches almost every part of an entire country's daily life? Well, today we're diving deep into Reliance Industries Limited. This isn't just a company, it's an Indian titan, a true empire. We're going to look at its incredible rise, its power today, and its seriously ambitious plans for the future. Let's get right into it.
So to really get a sense of the scale we're talking about here, you just have to look at this number. 19 lakh crore rupees. That's the market value. It's a number so huge it's almost hard to wrap your head around, right? But that's the playground Reliance is in, and it's the perfect place for us to start.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll track the journey from a small textile company to the giant it is today. Then we'll pop the hood and look at the 4 big engines that are driving its growth right now. After that, we'll get into its massive bet on green energy. And to wrap it all up, we'll put on our investor hats and see what it all means from a financial perspective.
Okay, let's kick things off at the very beginning. Because the Reliance we see today, well, it's a completely different beast from where it started. This is a story all about radical, relentless transformation.
You know, this timeline really tells you everything you need to know about Reliance's DNA. It's all about ambition. Yep, it started with textiles way back in '66, but that was just the launch pad. The 80s and 90s were the big pivot into oil and petrochemicals, building that massive cash machine that would fund everything else. By 2007, that strategy paid off, making it India's first $100 billion company. But here's the thing, they didn't stop there. The last decade has been all about conquering the Indian consumer, first with Jio and then with Reliance Retail, completely shaking up 2 massive industries. This isn't just growth, it's a series of incredibly bold, calculated leaps. So, all of that history brings us to the powerhouse of today. But what is it exactly that powers the modern Reliance empire? Well, it really boils down to 4 huge growth engines.
Let's take a look under the hood. First, you've got oil to chemicals, or O2C. That's the original cash cow. Then there's Reliance Retail, the absolute giant in the consumer space. Next up, Jio, the digital disruptor that changed everything. And finally, their big bet on the future, new energy. The truly brilliant part is how these are all designed to work together and feed off each other. Let's take a quick look at each one.
First up, O2C. This is the bedrock of the entire company. You can think of it as this gigantic, incredibly efficient machine that takes crude oil and turns it into everything from the fuel for your car to the plastics in your smartphone. But more importantly, it generates a ton of cash that has funded all of Reliance's other big moves. Now let's flip over to the consumer side of things. Just how big is Reliance Retail? Well, take a look at this number, 19,340. That's the number of stores they have. They are, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest retailer in India. The reach they have is just staggering. And if you thought that retail number was wild, check this one out, 191 million. That's how many people are using Jio's 5G network. I mean, think about it. In just a few short years, Jio didn't just join the telecom market, it completely rewrote the rules of the game for internet access in India. And this really puts it all into a global perspective. This isn't just an Indian success story. Jio is the largest 5G operator in the entire world if you don't count China. This insane growth just shows how Reliance has managed to build these 2 massive consumer businesses right alongside its industrial core. And get this, the data from Jio helps them figure out what to sell in Reliance retail stores. It's a powerful, self-reinforcing loop.
But here's the thing about Reliance. They never, ever stand still. The next massive pivot is already happening. And, you know, it might just be their most ambitious move yet, a full-scale, all-in bet on new energy.
Now, this is a seriously bold claim coming directly from the company. They are saying that their brand new green energy business could become as big as their gigantic oil and chemicals business in just 5 to 7 years. That is a massive statement of intent, and it tells you exactly where they see their future growth coming from. So, how are they going to do it?
So here's their classic playbook. They're not just investing in green energy, they're building the entire supply chain from the ground up. As you can see here, they're making everything themselves, from solar panels and batteries to the electrolyzers you need for green hydrogen. They're even jumping into bioenergy. This is classic Reliance. They want to own the entire ecosystem, end to end, from manufacturing all the way to deployment.
Okay, so we've got a dominant company with an incredibly bold vision for what's next. But what do the financial experts think? Let's put on our investor hats for a minute and weigh the potential risks versus the rewards.
This quote really gets to the heart of the risk factor here. Some analysts believe the stock is, and I quote, priced for perfection. So what does that actually mean? Well, in simple terms, it means the market expects everything to go exactly right, with no hiccups, no mistakes, and that, for any company, even one as successful as Reliance, is a very, very high bar.
And just for full transparency, that analysis comes from a recent report published by ICICI Securities.
So this table really lays out the two sides of the argument perfectly. On one hand, you have the optimists, the bulls, who point to the huge momentum in green energy and the absolute dominance of geo and retail. But then you have the skeptics, the bears, and they're pointing to some potential warning signs. For instance, their return on equity, which is just a fancy way of saying how well they turn investments into profit, is actually kind of low. They also don't pay out much of their profits to shareholders. And, like we just talked about, there's that big risk that the stock price already assumes a perfect, flawless future.
So here's where we land. Reliance has this incredible track record of totally reinventing itself and conquering new industries. Now it's aiming to do the exact same thing with green energy. The big question is, can they pull it off again? Or is the market's sky-high expectation of perfection the biggest risk of them all? That, my friends, is the multi-billion-dollar question.